universities are the designers, and you've just told us the importance of design. But really, aren't we going to end up with more Indians, more chiefs than Indians?
Thank you very much, sir, for those very provocative questions. Can you switch off your mic, please? And let's take 2 other questions and we'll allow the panelists to respond. I see the gentleman with the mic, please. I saw you first, and then the 2 on my left.
Thank you very much. My name is Maxwell Tim Napa. I come from Uganda. I work with the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation as the Director for Research and Innovation. I want to appreciate all the presentations, very provocative and good to listen to. But I was intrigued by the presentation by the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we know that one of our biggest challenges within our resource constrained setting is basically how to share the little that we have. Because at Kiagoli, there are many innovations and competing issues out there. From your presentation, you gave us a very exciting example where you take money and get to the university and yeah, they went on to become something, and that is very exciting. I'm wondering whether within your system you have any framework that would guide this allocation, because I am seeing a situation where there's so many demands. How do you then choose who to give? Then the other one is about the issue of equity. There is this debate. How does the government gain in terms of intellectual property rights? If you've benefited as a researcher or innovator from government resources, you've got IP, you've created business. Do you plow something within the research ecosystem to try and assist those researchers who might also need just a little token so that they can produce something? And then there's one about that gadget. I don't remember the name. We were warned this morning that you have to be careful about free things. How free is free? Because I still see a situation, well, much as you've said, within that little box, you have the tower, you have the server, but I'm like, how do you get a server? Because a server is a private environment that is run by a private entity. And you're telling us within that little box you have that server. I fail to understand that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next question, please.
But just naturally talented. Also developed some cost-effective irrigation pump. But both those situations, both those guys are nowhere to be seen right now because there was no support. So really my question is there a genuine political willingness to develop the right kind of bucket, like you mentioned it, to tap, to harness this which doesn't come from an institution? Because already these guys are disadvantaged. They have not had an opportunity to be captured by an institution for various reasons. But they are out there on the road and are being innovative, and they are demonstrating the innovation, but it's being killed. So really, I'm asking: is there a genuine political willingness to tap into that, so that we can have shared prosperity, so that we can minimize the inequality gap that we are experiencing right now? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's pause here with those 3 questions and allow the panel to respond, and then we'll take another set of 3. So, Ministers, most questions were directed to you, but the panel is, of course, more than welcome to respond. There was a question regarding policy as a barrier. How do we make sure that policies do not form barriers to the innovations that we have? There was a question around a complete ecosystem, linking polytechnics, universities, and industry, guiding framework for guiding resource allocation, issues around government's equity in the innovations that are there. And then anyone can respond to that question. And then to Shema, there was a question around your gadget. How free is it really? And the last one was on genuine political willingness. Perhaps you can start off, Minister, and then the panelists can add.
Thank you very much, Edith. Judith, there is a lot of genuineness. One of the most important things is sincerity in everything that we do. But because sometimes people have been cheated for a very long time, they won't be able to sincerity when it comes out, and they will lose out if they are not able to do so. So I appreciate the issue that there are a lot of talented people who are not necessarily at college, so which I call the secondary stream. There are a lot of talented people who are also at college. So these are two streams. And we are saying, in the past, we didn't have a formal structure within our systems that was able to tap into this. It was like tibula, everybody was doing things. Huh? So now, because we have put the Innovation Hub, which is the bridge between the university and the community, or the college and the university. And by the way, just to say, an innovation hub is not a building, it's a concept. So, now that we have this structure, I would challenge all those people whose innovations, people did not have buckets. The structures were not there to tap them. But we are saying now the structures are there. And all people who are willing to come with their ideas into the innovation hubs, they are very welcome. And we go for it. When it comes to genuineness about this, we are very genuine about it. That's why we have built, we are building the 7th one and the 8th one, 8 innovation hubs within a year. It shows that we are very serious about what we are doing. And the frustration that I had as an academic cannot continue among the academics when one of them is now a minister. So that basically means there will be a problem there if it continues. If the problem that I was facing as an academic continue when I'm minister, then I think I must just resign from my job. So I must be genuine in terms of trying to solve whatever problems that, because anyway, when we solve these things, it's not for individuals, it's for everybody. Because living in a country with the poverty is the most dangerous thing. So it has to be eradicated. That's what we have to eradicate. So we have to find a method of eradicating poverty. And there's no better methods except science, technology, and innovation, and building structures to utilize science, technology, and innovation to do this thing. I hope, Judith, I have answered that one. The genuineness you will measure by our actions. It's very difficult for me to say, I will always say I'm genuine. But I want to say, go on the ground in Zimbabwe, with the verification forms are called V11s. Go to the ground, you'll see the V11 about what I'm talking about. Yes, my colleague from Uganda. There's issue of allocation. I want to be very honest with you. I don't like this word called allocation. And I will explain why I don't like the word called allocation. People are waiting to be allocated things. Like in this country, there is what we call, people say, you did not allocate me foreign currency. I would just try to tell you this. I would be very provocative. People say, we don't have a foreign currency allocation. Then you say, how can you, are you exporting anything? They say no. So why do you want to be allocated with foreign currency when you don't export anything? I hope I'm saying something. Especially to Zimbabwe, they know what I'm talking about. People want to be allocated things and they are not productive. So allocation is based on ideas. If ideas are coming from one university and they are showing that they are moving very well and they are moving fast, I'll give them money. If nobody has, never give money to people without ideas. That's how we have failed as a continent. Because we are trying to, ideas are not just, they tend to be concentrated in certain people. Support those ones. And then those other ones will gain as well from there. It's merit. The allocation is based on merit. It's not based on who cries louder. I've said to a university, if you are not innovative, we are ready to suspend your act, the act that makes you exist. So, for example, he has got Bindura University of Science and Education Act. If Bindura University of Science and Education doesn't perform, I will ask Zimbabwe Council for Higher Education to suspend that act, and then they become a college of National University of Science and Technology. So I hope I'm saying something. I am saying this is time to be genuine and be very nicely brutal to inefficiency. So, but all people who are doing well are getting their money to do their things. But if you don't have an idea, you say, anyway, let me summarize it by saying, if Professor Mwenje is not thinking, just imagine he's not thinking. Even if I give him $10 billion, what difference does it make? That's why people who win lottery, sometimes they end up drinking beer with it. So it tells you that the idea comes first, and then it's funded. So people who are quiet without ideas, leave them in peace. Don't give them anything. So it's a bit hard, but I'm trying to say a point. Private sector. You know, government is normally, let me tell you that we have to be extremely friendly to the private sector. And if we even are able to give money for a private sector to do well, give them money, because they are the ones where you collect taxes from, right? And you know why private sector seems to be a problem in Africa? Because we didn't own anything. So anything private was imperial. Anything private was imperial. It was imperial industry. So by not supporting so government said, private sector, because it was not really ours, no? But what I'm talking about here is a private sector that we grow ourselves. Even if our private sector, tends to have links with everybody in the world, which is fine. They can have, but we have an obligation to support them, because we will collect tax from them as soon as they do well. So if I can grow so many private individuals in the private sector, fine, no problem. I have no qualms with supporting a private individual, because that private individual is a citizen. At the end of the day, we get tax from them. That's my answer to that one. So, and I tell you where the hate in Africa of what I assume to be the hate of the private sector was coming from. It was coming from the fact that these factories were not ours in the first place. It was education 3.0 kind of stuff. They were not ours. So supporting them means you are exporting money. But by supporting local private sector, you are not exporting money. You are actually supporting people who grow the economy. So I believe that we can do that very easily. We have very little money. So with the little money, you can't give to people who are not thinking. You said the little money that we have, coming to your cracks. Surely when you have little money, you can't give to non-thinkers. 5% of the people think, 10% think they think, 85% would rather die than think. This is what Thomas Edison said. So our survival depends on our experts. And experts are normally not in large numbers. Our survival is based on experts. And experts normally are not in large numbers. When you are hunting in a forest, and if there is an expert hunter, whom we call Hombarume in Shona, let that person hunt. If you hold that person back, all of you will die of hunger. That's why it is very important to support experts, and they are very rare people. So, how do you share the little? Give it to the best people. They will do the best for you. The other one, you give them survival money, just to make sure that you maintain the life processes of an institution. So that doesn't die. We're just hoping that one day they'll wake up and do better. So I think for my universities, they have had my model. If you do nothing, you can't beg using poverty as a strategy. No. People have been using poverty as a strategy to beg. Nobody likes poverty. People will run away from you. Poverty doesn't sell. So you give to the best, and they will do the best, and they will lift the rest. That is the strategy of sharing little resources. Never give them to a person that will waste them. On the other, and on our innovation, that's what we are doing. All people with ideas. Some people say, I think university is being given too much money. I will give them even more. It looks like something is coming out of there. So I will give them more money. You understand? Say, NAST is very expensive equipment. They've been bought more. We will buy even the more expensive equipment because they seem to be using it. You understand? Now, I think I'm about to finish answering the issue. Sam, you talked about an ecosystem. We have started the Zimbabwe National Qualifications Framework. The Zimbabwe National Qualifications Framework is a framework which interlinks polytechnics, universities, industrial training colleges, and teachers' colleges, which makes sure that there's movement within universities, which makes sure that universities, which are the top echelon in terms of design, they are the ones that actually, they can take people from advanced level, but they can also take people from colleges. And those people from colleges normally would be exempted from courses that they've already done. So Zimbabwe National Qualification Framework is a vehicle of making a complete ecosystem. But now this ministry has now been given another mandate by His Excellency the President, the mandate of innovation. In that mandate, we have got a lot of CNC machines, I can assure you. A lot of them that we have bought now, right? Those are common facility centers where the 3D things and the prototypes can be made in a centralized place. So we believe that the whole education system is an ecosystem that is interlinked. Somebody said, you make them compete. No, make people compete in a common program. Don't let them compete using different programs. So the issue basically is to make sure that we support as much as possible science and technology and common laboratories so that we can have the best thing. So an ecosystem is very important. Policy on telecoms and stuff. What we have done is, it's a very difficult question. I don't think I can answer it adequately. I can only tell you, because I can only tell you that on our part, for the higher and tertiary education sector, I've talked to one of the big business people and said, can you please provide our students with free access to Wi-Fi? So we started the Zimbabwe Edge Zone program. So all our institutions now, for our students, as long as they've got a student ID, they have free Wi-Fi. Starting this, is it last year? Last year, and we have finished them this year. So this is also how we are making people, this is Liquid Telecom. They've done great stuff. And they have actually connected all universities with free Wi-Fi. Why? Because they are the ones who then develop the apps that will drive the telecoms industry. It's common interest, which I believe is common interest. But it will be very difficult for me to say, let's not support big companies. Again, we'll go back to the old problem of trying to support people who will never rise. It's a catch-22 situation. If people have got very good ideas, you put your money there. If people are just complaining, you give them SADZA. You know, sometimes people just complain that there's so much. So if they are complaining but they don't have anything to offer, you give them SADZA so that they eat. The rest will be allowed to work and propel the continent forward. This continent needs its intelligent people. It needs to support them. and make sure that we get out of this thing of poverty, whereby everybody who shows a picture of poverty shows an African. It should not happen. It should not happen in the next 20 years. No, we cannot be used to that. Anyway, I think I'm almost done. And what we have done in order to tap into what he's saying, this thing, we have started a student innovation support program. The student innovation support program is whereby if a student has a good project, we will give them a grant to do their project until it comes to fruition. What we have done, we have started it last year in November. We started with 25 students at the University of Zimbabwe. We have got exciting projects. So we have put them in the Innovation Hub, and we are giving them a grant to make sure that they survive there. And we are actually buying them cars. With the little resources that we have, we'll buy them cars so that they are able to be comfortable in thinking. And I want to replicate this. I've been given almost $500,000 US to make sure that I incentivize students who are able to create. So this is what we are doing. With this kind of thing, I would say, come to the Innovation Hub. We patent your stuff. When we patent your stuff, you become a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's how we grow the private sector. So we believe that this is the way we have to go. Anyway, I might not be able to answer everything adequately, but I think you can see that we have no time for dullness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I will give Imran Patel a chance now to respond to some of the questions using South African examples. Over to Imran.
Yeah, I definitely won't be speaking to a predominantly Zimbabwean audience. Just some comments on the projects that you've mentioned from a science and technology perspective. There is the interface between the science and technology department and line functions. I don't know what's the experience in Zimbabwe, but the problem that you give is exactly that. And it takes a bit of maturity. We spend a lot of time at the DSI developing these relationships because the real power lies in the line department, whether it's communications or transport. The innovation system can do as much as it wants to if it doesn't kind of filter, and that calls for intergovernmental partnerships. And I think that would be encouraged. There's always a threat if people don't understand the technology, etc. So when you're talking about Zenzeleni, which is an off-grid community-based networks, we have the same challenge with our own department. We need to basically work with them, work with the private sector to identify what's the policy environment that will kind of catalyze that project. And I think that's going to be the downfall of a lot of there's a lot of excitement in the innovation space in many of the countries on the continent, but whether they have that strong presence and ability to influence their line department is something that requires, I mean, we've been there for a long, long time, and it's only now that we feel that we are being looked upon as providing the kind of intellectual advice on new models that are possible. And that means that the innovation ministry has to develop the credibility and trust to say we're there to support, here's our philosophical outlook, etc. The second quick comment is, innovation is going to always outpace the policy environment. And so there's a couple of ways of doing this. One is you need to keep the conversation going. You need to create there in other places of the world. They have formalized mechanisms now to do this. They call them regulatory sandboxes as an example. The Kenyan M-Pesa was an example. They were given a small ability, and our argument, and Minister might want to take this, is that you should leave this to the Ministry for Innovation to do, not the ministry responsible for the regulation, because they're too close to the area. So you then position yourself to say, we will do these regulatory sandboxes or whatever, we'll do the pilot, we'll do the demonstration. We have a track record of not wanting to fund any technology or any company. We're interested in innovation, and if it proves itself, you then be able to take it forward. And then the other big concept now in this age of emerging technologies is this concept of agile governance. You don't try to sort out the whole policy environment all at once. You create flexibilities. You don't regulate technologies, you regulate principles. So governments also in the 4R space have to become more clever about how they regulate. The old regulations that try to, and I give a good example, that some of the kind of acts of parliament or regulations or specification used to specify, as an example, this was an example that you can laugh at, that roads have to be 1/2 meter deep, as an example. Now that already cuts out a whole lot of innovations that may be built on thin film. Because in the past, people could only define specifications in terms of depth. So a road will only be able to sustain, but there's new materials. So you need to rethink how you do regulation. And it's not easy. Not even the US or the European Commission, etc., have cracked this in the age of artificial intelligence. How do you do smart regulation? And I think one of the things we're going to be doing, and this is a punt for this, is under the World Economic Forum Center, we have an affiliate center on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We're looking at policy and agile governance, and we want to do this with partners in the continent so that we are a lot more agile about how we frame our policy mechanisms.
Thank you very much, Imran, for those inputs. I see that has sparked a lot of questions. I'll just allow Shema to answer the one question, and then we'll take a second round of questions. But please keep your questions ready.
Okay. So to start off answering your question, I'll give you an example of the thinking that went behind it. In the 12th century, there was the Mongol Empire. That was, in the history of the world, that was the greatest empire ever in the history of the world. It opened the Silk Route, which was the fastest line of communication in the world and the most commercial route to travel in that time of the world. In the history of the world, the Mongol civilization was one of the most forward-thinking and innovative nations in the world. So it was founded by an illiterate person who couldn't read, he couldn't read, he couldn't write as well. And he went on to found the greatest empire in the history of the world. Now, the genius behind it was that he took innovations and skills from other countries and applied them directly to the problems that his nation was experiencing. So I took the Chinese to take their skills to solve problems that they needed. So now that's the whole thinking behind our device and our strategy going forward. We want to solve our problems. We don't take the technology, I wouldn't say the technologies, but we don't take the applications and the implementations adopted by the first world countries. We look at our problems and we create solutions to solve those problems in an African context. So regarding your question about the servers, so the servers, a primary function of a server is to store content. So there's two ways to answer that question. Number one, at scale and in a singular, with just one device, the purpose of it would be to store content and allow people to access their content. At scale, and once we create an interconnected network, like how the Silk Route would have been in the times of Genghis Khan, then we would have additional or greater server functionalities. And to answer your question about how free is free, that goes back to, I started off as an entrepreneur in the music industry. Now again, the music industry is a first world dominated industry. The music industry is a multi-billion dollar industry. Why it's so prominent overseas is because people have more money to spend on data. What's inhibiting our artists and our industry making money in our continent is the cost of data. So we're looking at, okay, if we can solve that issue and allow people to access the content for free without the stumbling block of data, we're boosting the ecosystem, we're boosting the economy. Like there's services like Spotify, there's services like Netflix. You pay a minimal amount, an affordable amount to get the content, but it doesn't even matter because of the amount of money that you're spending on data to watch the content. So what's the point of even having it cheap? So you pay for content regardless, but to access the content, that's where the real money is. So if you bridge that gap, you open up entire new industries and entire new models in an African context.
Thank you very much for that response. Let's take a second round of questions. I'll start with the gentleman in the lime jacket. And there's a gentleman right in front here. And then yourself, sir, with the, yeah. And then Peggy from UNESCO will be the fourth one.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Mcebisi. I'm coming from, I'm representing the Kweru chapter of Zim Youth SDG. First of all, I would like to recommend, the minister and the government, for the great initiative of coming up with the ministry that now includes innovation, and also the 5.0 education 5.0 model. Yeah, it's a wow. Then my question now is, in fact, before I even ask the question, I would like to also comment that I'm saying it's a wow because I am very passionate about disability issues, and the moment you talk of innovation, it will mean that we sort of will get people with disabilities being emancipated, because we're talking of innovations, we're talking of technology, and that will bring independence to them. So, Minister, a thumbs up to you for that. Then my question now is, what are the measures that have been taken to promote research in line of disability, be it academic papers, be it maybe field work to do with disability, and also the measures that are taken just to promote innovations. When we're talking of innovations in the field of disability, we're talking of people who are, who have great minds to come up with assistive devices. Enough about what we have now. We now need a device that will do everything for you in a way that will make you independent as a person with a disability. So my question to you, Minister, is that what measures are being taken to promote such?
Thank you very much. Over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Samuel Pati. I work for UNESCO in Nairobi office. I have a question for the minister. I'm very happy with his enthusiasm for the country, which is very well commendable. The question is, most of the times we organize, some of these exhibitions and, people coming around to showcase their technologies and innovations, and we have presidents, ministers coming around being very happy with, what the youths are doing and all that. But one thing that I realize is that there's nothing like a privatization framework, for all these technologies, because you can have solutions, many solutions for the same problem. And I'm trying to imagine how, the ministers, the policymakers are able to prioritize which ones they should channel their investment in. So I would like to know whether there's something of a sort in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So I've got one contribution and two questions. So my first question goes to Mr. Patel. You mentioned something about an equal distribution in South Africa. So the question is, what are the fundamental steps that you have taken to ensure that the unequal distribution can, in some point in time, be at least redistributed so that the bulk of the people can benefit? Because as we are moving on to prosperity, if the big number of people are not emancipated and are not benefiting, it leads to alarming levels of even unrest and everything, because the bulk of the people will be suffering. And as the minister portrayed it, hunger and starvation can cause a lot of things in a society. Then my next question goes to the guy with the device. So with your device, I'm impressed. But then I have to ask, do you know the cost of everything in this world is about high cost? I'll give an example. If you want to travel fast to America right now, what would you use? A boat or a jet? A jet, and it costs you more. If you want to get the best, I'll give you an example, African example. Most of the African people with money, when they start having shivers or anything, cold flu, where do they go? They go to the United States, they go to the United Kingdom. It is because the United States and the United Kingdom are equipped with the best laboratories to deal with any cases. If it's cancer, it's everything, because they invested much in it. So my question comes back to you. If you're saying that you're not charging anything, it's data free, it's costless to bring that one, are you not taking away effectiveness, efficiency, at the expense of just having access of access to the content that you want to breach?
Thank you, sir.
And the last one, I said
I
the
think
last one.
let's give other people a chance. Yeah, let's give Madam Peggy a chance. If there are no more questions, we'll come back to you. Peggy?
Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is, we have all these innovations. How are we ensuring that it is documented to be referenced globally? Because I sit where I am, and there's no information on innovation on Africa. And I see that there's so much happening. So how are we ensuring that we also have a plan, for documenting those information? How do we create the visibility of what we have? How do we share the good experiences of what we have? How do we create the partnerships so that people will appreciate what Africa has, so that we don't always remain as consumers of technology, but we should also be perceived and seen as creators of the technology? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those brilliant questions. So we'll allow the panelists to answer questions, but if there is a moderator for the next session, please show yourself. Otherwise, we continue until 5. Over to you, panelists.
Thank you very much. Mkelisi? Is that Mkelisi or? Right, yes. Thank you for the compliments. But of course, we still have a long way to go in terms of research, because in terms of innovations that you have to address issues of disability. I'm aware of, for example, for the visual impaired at the University of Zimbabwe, they were having this walking stick with a GPS and everything, which we are promoting. I know of the Braille dictionary that we gave money to Reformed Church University. We gave them 50,000, and I sent one of their members of staff to do a PhD in terms of Braille to Cape Town University. Now he got a Fulbright scholarship. He's now in the United States. All of this, we are trying to make sure that we improve this area. The only university in this country that has been able to take people with disabilities is University of Zimbabwe, and it's a shame, because we should be able to, because they've got the Disability Resource Center, which we also have to support a lot, because at the University of Zimbabwe, when you go there and you have disabilities, you don't pay anything. They help you. But we believe that more innovations have to take place within this area, especially using our Education 5.0 model, that we begin to do that. I know at United College of Education, we have bought some equipment there to make sure that we enable people to learn better, because the more we are also able to train our people with disabilities, the more they will be able to help in the innovations by removing them from a pool of people whom, for example, have no access to people with access. When we have done that, I believe we'll do more. But there's a lot to be done. What we are doing now is challenge-based research. For example, if we have got a challenge, then we say, let's do research on that challenge. And we are ready to receive proposals on challenges, which we can then commission as research for solutions. On the other issue, ministers go to exhibitions and they say, oh, very good, very good. It's true, huh? What you are saying is very true. You are very polite. It's even worse than that. Oh, nice, nice. Oh, yeah, pat on the back. Nice, 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 nice. I think, as I have said, it's time for us to be serious people. Politics has to be more facilitatory than a barrier. We believe that as we own our continent, and as people genuinely own the continent, by being loyal to it, and by being confident about themselves, we are likely to be able to prioritize things much better. One thing that we have done in this country, but anyway, I'm answering a question of a person who has gone out, is that we have started a program of prioritizing research in this country for innovation. I happen to be the chair of innovation in cabinet, so we have got programs, 16 programs on research that we have to, which are priorities, starting from what we call minerals and energy research program, to biotechnology research program, to pharmaceutical engineering research program, to geospatial and space research program, to Smart Zimbabwe research program, and so forth. So what we have said is that under these research programs, if there is a university that gives us proposals, under any one of the